Jake Mitchell pressed his face against the small window of the transport ship and watched the massive space station grow larger before his eyes. The Nexus was bigger than anything he had ever seen. It stretched out like a metal city floating in the darkness of space, with lights twinkling from thousands of windows and docking bays. "First time seeing it?" asked Dr. Lisa Harper from the seat beside him. She was looking at her tablet, reading through files about the alien species they were about to meet. Jake nodded. "It's incredible. Hard to believe we're really here." 5. Years ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Then the aliens found Earth, not with weapons or invasion fleets, but with a simple message that changed everything. They called themselves the Galactic Council, and they wanted to talk. Now Jake was here as Earth's first official ambassador. The job felt too big for one person, but someone had to do it. He had spent 20 years working in human diplomacy. But this was different. These were not just foreign countries with different languages and customs. These were entirely different species that had evolved on distant worlds. "Tell me about them again," Jake said, straightening his tie. He had worn his best suit for this meeting, though he wondered if the aliens would even understand what formal human clothing meant. Lisa scrolled through her tablet. 12 species in total. The Zephyrians look like walking crystals. They change colors to communicate, kind of like mood rings, but much more complex. The Karathi are tall and thin, almost like trees. They talk through sounds so low that humans can barely hear them. Jake listened carefully. He had read all of this before, but hearing it again helped calm his nerves. "The Vex are probably the strangest ones," Lisa continued. "They look like floating jellyfish, but they're actually very smart. They talk by releasing different smells into the air. Their translator machines turn the smells into words we can understand." "And the Thrax?" Jake asked. "Giant insects, basically." "They click their mouth parts to make sounds. Very organized, like a hive mind, but with individual personalities." Jake tried to picture all of these creatures sitting around a table together. It seemed impossible that they could all get along, let alone work together to run a galactic government. The transport ship shuddered slightly as it connected to the docking bay. Jake felt his stomach tighten with nervousness. This was it. Everything he did in the next few hours could determine humanity's future in the galaxy. "Remember," Lisa said as they gathered their things, "none of these species use facial expressions like we do. They don't smile, frown, or raise their eyebrows. To them, our faces are always moving in strange ways. Just try to keep a neutral expression." Jake nodded, though he wasn't sure how natural that would feel. Humans were expressive creatures. It was part of who they were. The docking bay was enormous and filled with ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like metal sculptures, others like living creatures. Jake and Lisa followed their guide, a small robot that spoke in a pleasant voice, through a series of corridors toward the council chambers. The walls were smooth and gray, with no decorations or artwork. Everything was designed to be neutral, to avoid favoring any particular species. Jake found it cold and unwelcoming, but he supposed that was the point. "The council members are waiting," the robot announced as they approached a large circular door. "Please remember that this is a formal session. All communication will be handled through the translation system." The door opened with a soft hiss, and Jake stepped into the most unusual room he had ever seen. The chamber was circular and huge, with different types of seating arranged around the edges. In the center was a platform where Jake assumed he would stand to address the council. The alien delegates were already present, and Jake's first sight of them was overwhelming. The Zephyrians were indeed like walking crystals, their bodies catching and reflecting the light in beautiful patterns. The Karathi looked like tall, thin trees with faces swaying slightly as they stood. The Vex floated in transparent containers, filled with a strange gas, their tentacles moving in slow, hypnotic patterns. The Threx were the most intimidating. They stood over 7 feet tall, with multiple arms and large, multifaceted eyes. Their mouths were surrounded by sharp-looking parts that clicked and moved constantly. Jake took a deep breath and stepped forward. This was the moment he had trained for. He looked around the room at all the different species, feeling both honored and terrified to be representing all of humanity. "Greetings," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's sound system. "I am Ambassador Jake Mitchell, representing the people of Earth. Thank you for this opportunity to address the Council." As he spoke, he did what came naturally to him as a diplomat and as a human. He smiled. It was a warm, genuine smile meant to show respect and friendliness. In every human culture, a smile was a sign of peaceful intentions. The reaction was immediate and unexpected. The Zephyrian's crystals began flashing rapidly between different colors. The Karathi made a low, rumbling sound that seemed to fill the entire chamber. The Vex in their containers began moving their tentacles in quick, agitated patterns. The Threx delegates stepped backward, their clicking sounds becoming rapid and high-pitched. Other species that Jake had not yet been introduced to also showed signs of distress or alarm. Jake's smile faded quickly as he realized something had gone very wrong. He looked at Lisa, who was staring at her tablet with wide eyes. The translation system was working overtime, trying to process all the different reactions happening at once. "What did I do?" Jake whispered to Lisa. Trying not to move his lips too much, Lisa was reading the translations as fast as they appeared on her screen. "I don't know," she whispered back. But whatever it was, it affected all of them. The head of the council, a tall, elegant creature called a Nexari, raised one of its 4 arms for silence. The room gradually became quiet, though Jake could still see signs of agitation throughout the chamber. "Ambassador Mitchell," the Nexari said through the translation system, "perhaps you could explain the purpose of the facial distortion you just displayed." Jake blinked in confusion. "Facial distortion?" "I was just smiling. It's a sign of friendship and respect in human culture." Another wave of reaction swept through the chamber. Jake was beginning to understand that his simple, natural human expressions were causing some kind of problem, but he had no idea what or why. The meeting was about to become much more complicated than anyone had expected. Jake stood in the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes watching him. The silence stretched on as he tried to figure out what to say. He had never imagined that something as simple as a smile could cause such a reaction. "I apologize if I did something wrong," Jake said carefully, trying to keep his face as still as possible. "In human culture, smiling shows that we are friendly and peaceful. I meant no harm." The Nexari leader tilted its head, which Jake hoped was a good sign. "You say this facial movement indicates peaceful intentions?" "Yes, exactly," Jake replied, relieved that he could explain. "Humans use many facial expressions to communicate feelings. A smile means we are happy or friendly." As Jake spoke, he naturally raised his eyebrows slightly to show he was being sincere. He had done this thousands of times in diplomatic meetings with other humans. It was an automatic response that showed he was paying attention and being honest. The moment his eyebrows moved, another wave of reactions swept through the chamber. The Karathi made their low rumbling sound again, but this time it was different. Lisa watched her tablet as the translation system tried to make sense of the noise. According to the readout, the Karathi were expressing something like confusion or uncertainty. The Zephyrian's crystals changed to a deep purple color, which Lisa's notes said indicated deep thought or analysis. The Vex began releasing small puffs of different colored gases, and their translator announced that they were discussing something urgent. Among themselves, Jake noticed all of this but didn't understand what was happening. He looked at Lisa, who was frantically taking notes on her tablet. She was recording everything she could about the aliens' reactions, though she wasn't sure why it mattered yet. "Please continue with your presentation, Ambassador Mitchell," the Nexari said. "We are interested to learn more about your species." Jake began his prepared speech about Earth and humanity. He talked about human history, their achievements, and their desire to join the galactic community. As he spoke, he unconsciously used the facial expressions that made him a good diplomat. When he mentioned humanity's struggles, his face showed concern. When he talked about their hopes for the future, his eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Each change in his expression caused reactions throughout the chamber. The Threx clicked their mouth parts in different patterns. The Vex released different combinations of gases. The Korathi's rumbling changed pitch and tone. Even species that hadn't reacted before began showing signs of agitation or interest. Lisa was fascinated by what she was seeing. As a xenopsychologist, she had studied how different species communicated, but she had never seen anything like this. The aliens were clearly responding to Jake's facial expressions, but their reactions seemed involuntary, almost like reflexes. She began to notice patterns. When Jake's face showed concern, the Zephyrian's crystals turned a specific shade of blue. When he looked confused, the Korathi's rumbling became higher-pitched. When he smiled again, trying to be reassuring, the Threx stepped backward and made rapid clicking sounds. The most interesting reactions came from the Vex. Every time Jake's expression changed, they released different gases. But according to Lisa's notes, these gases were not part of their normal communication system. They seemed to be involuntary responses, like the way humans might gasp when surprised or blush when embarrassed. Jake finished his presentation and waited for questions. The chamber was unusually quiet, with delegates whispering or making soft sounds among themselves. Finally, a Korathi delegate stood up. "Ambassador Mitchell," the Korathi said through the translation system, "we are curious about these facial movements you make. Do all humans do this?" "Yes," Jake replied, nodding slightly. The nodding caused another small ripple of reactions. All humans express emotions through their faces. "It's natural for us, and you cannot control these movements?" asked a Zephyrian delegate, its crystals flickering between colors. Jake thought about this. "Well, we can control them to some extent. Diplomats learn to manage their expressions, but it's not always easy. Facial expressions are a big part of how we communicate." "Fascinating," rumbled the Korathi. "We have never encountered a species that displays internal states so openly." A Vex delegate spoke up, its words coming through the translator with a slight delay. "Among our species, revealing internal thoughts or emotions is considered a sign of weakness or mental instability. We have evolved to hide our true feelings." "Same with us," clicked a Threx delegate. "Our survival has always depended on not showing our enemies what we are thinking." Jake began to understand something important. These alien species had all evolved to hide their emotions and thoughts. They saw facial expressions as a form of vulnerability, maybe even a kind of weapon. To them, humans were walking around with their feelings completely exposed. "In our culture," Jake said slowly, "showing emotions is often seen as a sign of trust. When we smile at someone, we are showing them that we are not a threat. When we frown, we are showing concern. It helps us understand each other." The Nexari leader made a sound that didn't translate well. "You show your true feelings to strangers, even to potential enemies?" "Sometimes," Jake admitted. "It depends on the situation. But yes, humans often show their emotions openly." The chamber erupted in excited discussions. Different species were talking among themselves, and the translation system was working overtime to process all the different languages and communication methods. Lisa was taking notes as fast as she could. She was beginning to realize that they had stumbled onto something extraordinary. These alien species were all reacting to Jake's facial expressions in ways that seemed to reveal their own hidden thoughts and feelings. When Jake smiled, the Threx moved away, suggesting they saw it as a threat. When he frowned, the Korathi made sounds that indicated they were worried about something. When he raised his eyebrows, the Zephyrian's crystals showed colors that meant they were analyzing or calculating something. It was as if Jake's human expressions were acting like a key that unlocked the aliens' carefully hidden emotions. They couldn't help but respond, even though they didn't want to. "Jake," Lisa whispered when the discussions finally quieted down, "I think we need to be very careful about how you use your facial expressions. Something strange is happening here." Jake nodded slightly, causing another small wave of reactions. "I'm starting to see that," he whispered back. "But I'm not sure what it means." "It means," Lisa said quietly, "that we might have just discovered humanity's greatest advantage in galactic politics." The session continued, but Jake was now aware that every expression on his face was being watched and analyzed by creatures who had never learned to hide their own reactions to human emotion. He was beginning to understand that this diplomatic mission might be more important than anyone had realized. The aliens thought they were evaluating humanity, but actually, humanity was learning to read them in ways they had never experienced before. Jake slumped into the chair in their small quarters aboard the Nexus station. His head was spinning from everything that had happened in the council chamber. The meeting had ended abruptly when several alien delegates requested time to discuss what they had witnessed. That was the strangest diplomatic session I've ever been part of, Jake said, loosening his tie. And I've been doing this for 20 years. Lisa was already at the small table, her tablet connected to a larger screen. She had been quiet during the walk back to their quarters, but Jake could see her mind was working hard on something. Jake, I think we stumbled onto something huge today, she said, not looking up from her screen. Look at this. She had created a chart showing the timeline of the meeting. Along the bottom were notes about Jake's facial expressions. Along the side were the different alien species and their reactions. Every time you smiled, the Threx moved backward and made rapid clicking sounds. Every single time, Lisa explained, pointing to the pattern on her screen. And when you raised your eyebrows, the Zephyrians always turned the same shade of purple. Jake moved closer to look at the chart. You think they're responding to my expressions? Not just responding, Lisa said, her voice getting excited. I think they're revealing things about themselves that they don't want us to know. Look at this pattern with the Korathi. She pointed to another section of the chart. Every time you showed concern or worry, their rumbling got higher pitched. But according to my research, Korathi only make high-pitched sounds when they're stressed about something specific. Something they're trying to hide. Jake studied the patterns. So when I looked worried, they showed that they were actually worried. About something too? Exactly, and it gets better. Lisa scrolled to another section. The Vex released different gas combinations throughout the meeting. I ran the combinations through the translation database. Some of these gases aren't part of their normal communication system. What do they mean? One combination means financial concern, another means military weakness. Jake, when you made certain expressions, they involuntarily released gases that revealed their biggest fears and problems. Jake sat down heavily. Are you saying that my facial expressions are making them give away secrets? That's exactly what I'm saying. These species have evolved to hide their emotions and thoughts. They're experts at keeping secrets. But they've, never encountered a species that displays emotions the way humans do. Your expressions are triggering involuntary responses that reveal their true feelings, Jake thought about this. But how is that possible? They're intelligent species. Surely, they can control their reactions? Think about it this way, Lisa said. Humans evolved to read facial expressions. It's how we survive in social groups. We automatically respond to smiles, frowns, and other expressions. These aliens never evolved that ability because they never needed it. Their species don't use facial expressions, so when I smile at them ... they don't know how to process it. Their brains are trying to understand what you're communicating, and in doing so, they reveal their own internal states. It's like their minds are working so hard to figure out what you mean that they forget to guard their own thoughts. Jake stood up and started pacing. This is incredible, but also terrifying. We can't use this information to manipulate them. That would be wrong. I agree, Lisa said. But Jake, we also can't ignore what we've learned. This could be the key to successful diplomacy between humans and alien species. If we can understand what they're really thinking and feeling, we can address their real concerns instead of just what they tell us. Jake stopped pacing. You want to test this theory? I want to understand it better, Lisa corrected. Tomorrow we have individual meetings with several of the delegations. If we're careful and ethical about it, we can see if the same patterns hold true. Jake wasn't sure about this. It felt like spying, even though he wasn't doing anything except being himself. What if we're wrong? What if we're misreading their reactions? Then we learned something else valuable, Lisa said. But Jake, I've been studying alien psychology for 10 years. I've never seen anything like what happened today. These reactions are real, and they're consistent. The next morning, Jake prepared for his first individual meeting with the Zephyrian delegation. Lisa had briefed him on what to watch for. If her theory was correct, the Zephyrians' color changes would reveal specific information about their thoughts and concerns. The Zephyrian ambassador was named Kristen, and he was beautiful to look at. His crystalline body caught the light and reflected it in rainbow patterns. Jake had read that Zephyrians considered their color changes to be private communications, like humans writing in a diary. Ambassador Mitchell, Kristen said through the translator, we are pleased to meet with you privately. The council session yesterday was unusual. Jake smiled politely. I hope I didn't offend anyone. Human expressions are natural to us, but I understand they might seem strange to other species. As Jake smiled, Kristen's crystals immediately shifted to a deep blue color. According to Lisa's notes, deep blue meant the Zephyrian was analyzing or calculating something. Then the color shifted to a lighter blue, which meant uncertainty or concern. Your species displays emotions very openly, Kristen observed. This is not common among galactic species. Jake nodded, and Kristen's crystals flickered quickly between several colors. Lisa had said that rapid color changes meant the Zephyrian was processing complex information or feeling conflicted about something. We understand that most species prefer to keep their feelings private, Jake said. But humans find it helpful to share emotions. It builds trust. When Jake said the word trust, Kristen's crystals turned a shade of green that Lisa's notes identified as fear or anxiety. This was interesting. The Zephyrian was afraid of something related to trust. Jake decided to test this carefully. Of course, trust must be earned over time. It requires honesty and openness from both sides. The crystals shifted to a deep red color, which meant serious concern or danger. Then they flickered to yellow, which meant deception or hiding something. Jake was amazed. Just by talking about trust and honesty, he had learned that the Zephyrians were worried about something they were hiding. They were afraid that their deception might be discovered. We Zephyrians value honesty very highly, Kristen said, but his crystals remained yellow. Indicating he was not being entirely truthful, Jake raised his eyebrows slightly, showing mild surprise. That's good to hear. Honesty is important in diplomatic relationships. The crystals immediately shifted to bright orange, which Lisa's note said meant panic or emergency. Kristen was panicking about something related to honesty, the meeting continued, but Jake now understood that the Zephyrians were hiding something important, and they were terrified that it might be discovered. His simple human expressions had revealed their biggest weakness. They were not as honest as they claimed to be. After the meeting, Jake returned to Lisa with detailed notes about Kristen's color changes. Lisa compared them to her research and confirmed what Jake had suspected. The Zephyrians are definitely hiding something, she said, and they're scared that we'll find out what it is. This is incredible, Jake said, but also scary. We're learning their secrets without even trying. And we have 3 more meetings today, Lisa said. By tonight, we might understand more about these alien species than their own allies do. Jake wasn't sure if this was a gift or a curse, but he knew that humanity's future in the galaxy might depend on how they used this unexpected advantage. Jake stood in front of the mirror in their quarters, practicing different facial expressions. It felt strange to rehearse something that had always been natural to him. But after 3 days of individual meetings with alien delegations, he understood how powerful his expressions could be. Try the questioning look again, Lisa said, watching him from across the room. She had filled several tablets with notes about each species' reactions to different expressions. Jake raised one eyebrow slightly and tilted his head. Like this? Perfect. That expression made the Deltans reveal their military strength yesterday. They started clicking in patterns that translates to specific ship numbers and weapon types. Lisa had spent the last 3 days mapping out what she called the expression effect. Each alien species had predictable reactions to certain human facial expressions. The Karathi revealed their confidence levels through sound changes. The Threx showed their decision-making hierarchy through clicking patterns. The Vex accidentally released gases that exposed their financial concerns. "Today is the big day," Jake said, adjusting his tie. "The Council votes on humanity's membership. Everything we've learned over the past few days comes down to this." "Are you ready?" Lisa asked. Jake nodded. "I think so. But I'm still not comfortable with this. It feels like we're cheating somehow." "You're not lying to them, Jake. You're just being human. If they reveal their true thoughts when you smile or frown, that's their problem, not yours." Jake wasn't entirely convinced, but he knew that humanity's future in the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few hours. The Council had been debating Earth's membership application, and from what he had learned through his expressions, several species had serious concerns they weren't sharing openly. They walked to the council chamber together. Jake felt more nervous than he had on the first day, but this time it was different. He knew what his expressions could do, and he had a plan for using them. The chamber was full when they arrived. All 12 alien species were present, along with their advisors and translators. The Nexari leader called the session to order. "Today we will hear final statements and vote on humanity's application for membership in the Galactic Council," the Nexari announced. "Each delegation will have the opportunity to voice their position." The first few delegations spoke in favor of humanity's membership. Jake listened carefully, watching for any signs that they were not being entirely truthful. When the Korathi delegate spoke about humanity's potential contributions, Jake smiled warmly to show appreciation. The Korathi's subsonic rumbling immediately became higher-pitched, indicating stress or concern. Jake's smile had revealed that the Korathi was worried about something related to humanity's contributions. Even though their words were supportive, the Threx delegation was next. Their representative clicked rapidly about humanity's peaceful nature and desire for cooperation. Jake nodded approvingly, which caused the Threx to step backward and make different clicking sounds. Lisa was taking notes on her tablet, translating the clicking patterns. According to her research, the Threx had just revealed their real concern. They were worried about humanity's military potential, not their peaceful nature. The problems began when the Vex delegation spoke. Their representative floated in the center of the chamber, releasing careful combinations of gases that the translator turned into words about resource allocation and trade opportunities. "We believe humanity could bring valuable resources to the Council," the Vex said. "However, we must consider the economic impact of adding a new species to our trade networks." Jake tilted his head slightly, showing interest and asking for more details. The Vex immediately released a burst of different gases, and Jake could see Lisa's eyes widen as she read the translation. "What did they just say?" Jake whispered. "They're lying," Lisa whispered back. "The gases they just released mean abundance and hiding wealth. They're claiming resource scarcity, but they actually have plenty of resources." Jake felt a flash of anger. The Vex were trying to manipulate the vote by lying about their economic situation. He looked directly at the Vex delegate and gave a small, knowing smile. The effect was immediate. The Vex released a large cloud of gases that made their translator work overtime. According to the readout, the gases revealed specific numbers about their resource stockpiles, trade profits, and hidden wealth reserves. Other delegations began making surprise sounds as the translation system announced what the Vex had accidentally revealed. The Korathi's rumbling became deeper, indicating they were angry about being deceived. The Zephrion's crystals flashed bright red, showing they felt betrayed. "It seems," the Nexari leader said carefully, "that there may be some confusion about resource availability." The Vex delegate tried to recover by releasing more gases, but Jake maintained his knowing smile. Every gas combination they released only revealed more about their deception. There may have been errors in our previous statements. The Vex finally admitted. The real test came when the Deltan delegation spoke. They had been quiet during most of the meetings, but Jake's expressions had revealed that they were planning something. The Deltan representative was tall and thin, with multiple eyes that moved independently. We have concerns about humanity's military capabilities, the Deltan said. Our intelligence suggests that humans have aggressive tendencies that could threaten galactic peace. Jake knew this was false. Earth's military was primitive compared to galactic standards, and humanity had no aggressive plans. But the Deltan was clearly trying to scare other delegations into voting against Earth's membership. Jake raised his eyebrows in surprise, as if he was shocked by the accusation. The Deltan's multiple eyes immediately began moving in rapid patterns, and they made soft clicking sounds with their mouth. Lisa was translating as fast as she could. Jake, they're revealing their own military capabilities. Those eye movements and clicks are giving away their ship locations, weapon systems, and battle plans. Jake maintained his surprised expression, and the Deltan continued revealing military secrets. Other delegations were listening carefully, and some were clearly concerned about what they were learning about Deltan military strength. Furthermore, the Deltan continued, we believe humanity's emotional displays make them unsuitable for diplomatic situations. Jake almost laughed at the irony. The Deltan was criticizing human emotional displays while involuntarily revealing their own military secrets because of those same displays. I'm sorry you feel that way, Jake said, allowing his disappointment to show on his face. We had hoped all species would judge us fairly. The Deltan's eyes moved even faster, and they made more clicking sounds. They were now revealing their true reasons for opposing humanity. They were afraid that humans would expose their own aggressive plans. By the time the Deltan finished speaking, half the chamber knew more about Deltan military capabilities than they had ever intended to reveal. The Nexari leader looked troubled by what the translations had revealed. Perhaps, the Nexari said, we should take a short break before the vote. During the break, Jake and Lisa watched as different delegations huddled together, clearly discussing what they had learned. The Vex's economic deception and the Deltan's military revelations had changed the entire tone of the meeting. Jake, Lisa said quietly, I think we just exposed two major threats to galactic peace. The Vex have been lying about resources to manipulate trade, and the Deltans have been planning military actions while pretending to be peaceful. Jake nodded. And all I did was smile and raise my eyebrows. All you did was be human, Lisa corrected. That's what makes this so powerful. You're not trying to deceive anyone. You're just being yourself, and that's forcing them to reveal their true nature. When the council reconvened for the vote, the atmosphere had completely changed. The delegations that had been honest about their support for humanity were now seen as trustworthy allies. The species that had tried to deceive or manipulate the vote had been exposed. The vote was unanimous in favor of humanity's membership. But more importantly, Jake realized that his expressions had done more than just secure Earth's place in the council. They had revealed the true character of each species, separating the honest from the deceptive. As the session ended, Jake understood that humanity's greatest strength in galactic diplomacy wouldn't be their technology or their military might. It would be their ability to be genuinely, authentically human in a universe full of hidden agendas and secret plans. 3 weeks after the historic vote, Jake stood in the same council chamber where humanity had first been accepted into the galactic community. But this time, he wasn't there as a nervous newcomer. He was there as Earth's first official council member, and he had something important to say. The chamber was packed with delegates from all 12 species, plus observers from several other civilizations that had heard about the unusual events during humanity's membership vote. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy about the human diplomat, who could somehow read alien thoughts through facial expressions. Honored delegates, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation system, I stand before you today to address something that has changed not just humanity's place in this council, but the way we all communicate with each other. He paused and looked around the chamber. The alien delegates were watching him carefully, but their body language was different now. They seemed more relaxed, less guarded than they had been during his first appearance. 3 weeks ago, I smiled at you for the first time, Jake continued. I had no idea that such a simple human expression would cause such a reaction. I was just trying to be friendly. Several delegates made sounds that the translators identified as amusement or agreement. The Korathi delegate rumbled softly, and Jake had learned that this particular sound meant they were pleased or comfortable. What we discovered together was that human facial expressions seemed to trigger involuntary responses in many alien species. My smile, my frown, my raised eyebrows, they all caused you to reveal thoughts and feelings that you normally keep hidden. Jake's expression became more serious. At first, Dr. Harper and I saw this as an advantage. We could use my expressions to learn what you were really thinking. And we did use this knowledge to help humanity gain membership in the Council. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Vex released a small puff of gas that meant concern or worry. But as I learned more about each of your species, Jake continued, I realized that this ability comes with great responsibility. Just because I can trigger these responses doesn't mean I should use them to manipulate or deceive you. The Zephyrian delegate's crystals shifted to a warm golden color, which Jake had learned meant respect or admiration. The truth is, Jake said, human expressions are not weapons. They are windows. When I smile, I'm not trying to force you to reveal your secrets. I'm trying to show you that I am open and honest. When I frown, I'm not attacking you. I'm showing you that I'm concerned about something. He walked closer to the center of the chamber, making eye contact with different delegates as he spoke. What makes human expressions powerful is not that they can reveal your thoughts, Jake explained. What makes them powerful is that they are genuine. When humans show emotion, we are being vulnerable. We are showing you our true selves, even when it might not be safe to do so. The Threx delegate clicked their mouth parts in a pattern that meant understanding or agreement. Over the past 3 weeks, I've had many conversations with each of you, Jake said. And I've learned that the reason my expressions trigger your responses is not because you're weak or defenseless. It's because you've never experienced genuine emotional honesty before. A murmur went through the chamber as the delegates discussed this among themselves. Every species here has evolved to hide their true feelings, Jake continued. You've all learned to be suspicious, to keep secrets, to protect yourselves by never showing weakness. But humans evolve differently. We learn to survive by working together, by sharing our feelings, by trusting each other. The Nexari leader stood up. Ambassador Mitchell, are you saying that human expressions are dangerous because they are honest? Jake smiled, and he saw the familiar ripple of reactions throughout the chamber. But this time, the reactions seemed less panicked and more curious. I'm saying that honesty is powerful, Jake replied. When I smile at you, I'm not hiding anything. When I show concern, I'm genuinely worried. When I raise my eyebrows, I'm really surprised. You react to my expressions because you recognize something you've never experienced before, complete emotional transparency. Lisa sat in the observer section, watching Jake with pride. Over the past 3 weeks, she had worked with him to develop new protocols for human diplomats. They had created training programs that taught humans how to use their natural expressions ethically and responsibly. That's why, Jake continued, Earth is proposing a new approach to galactic diplomacy. We want to share our understanding of emotional communication with all species that are interested in learning. The chamber erupted in discussions. Some delegates seemed excited by the idea, while others appeared concerned or skeptical. We're not asking you to change your nature, Jake clarified. We're offering to teach you how to read and understand human expressions so that our interactions can be more balanced and fair. A Delton delegate stood up. What about the military and economic information that was revealed during the membership vote? That information was supposed to be secret? Jake's expression became serious. That's exactly why we need this new approach. The information that was revealed during the vote showed that some species were planning to deceive or manipulate the Council. Our expressions didn't create those problems. They simply exposed them. He looked directly at the Delton delegate. Honest species have nothing to fear from emotional transparency. Only those who are planning deception or aggression need to worry about having their true intentions revealed. The Vex delegate released a combination of gases that meant acceptance and agreement. We propose creating a new diplomatic protocol. Jake said, all species can choose to participate in transparency training. Those who participate will learn to read human expressions and understand their meaning. In return, humans will learn to better understand your communication methods. The Karathi delegate rumbled a question. What about species that choose not to participate? Jake smiled. That's their choice. But I think you'll find that transparent, honest communication leads to better relationships and more successful negotiations. Species that choose secrecy and deception will find themselves at a disadvantage. The Nexari leader called for a vote on Jake's proposal. The result was overwhelming. 10 of the 12 species voted to participate in the new transparency protocols. 6 months later, Jake stood in a classroom aboard the Nexus station. In front of him sat 12 human diplomats, all preparing for their first assignments to different alien worlds. Remember, Jake told his students, your expressions are not tools for manipulation. They are invitations to honesty. When you smile at an alien delegate, you're not trying to force them to reveal secrets. You're showing them that you can be trusted with their true feelings. One student raised her hand. What if they don't want to be transparent with us? Jake smiled. Then that tells you something important about them, doesn't it? In the new galactic community, species that embrace honesty and transparency are building stronger relationships and solving problems more effectively. Species that cling to secrecy and deception are finding themselves left behind. Another student asked, do you think this will change how alien species evolve in the future? Jake looked out the window at the busy space station where humans and aliens work together more harmoniously than ever before. I think, he said, that we're all learning that vulnerability and honesty are not weaknesses. They're the foundation of trust, and trust is what makes civilization possible. The class ended and Jake watched his students file out, ready to spread humanity's gift of emotional honesty throughout the galaxy. He thought about how much had changed since that first day when he had simply smiled at a group of alien delegates. That smile had exposed weaknesses, revealed secrets, and changed the balance of power in the galaxy. But more importantly, it had opened the door to a new kind of relationship between species, one based on truth, transparency, and genuine emotion. Jake's smile hadn't been a weapon after all. It had been a bridge connecting humanity to the rest of the galaxy in ways that no one had ever imagined possible.